Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to.
All right, well, thanks everybody for coming in today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Javi Cano. I'm the Director of Marketing at LiquidWeb, which is right here down the street in the VisionWorks building, second floor. And I guess I'll just do a brief introduction to myself. So I got involved in the CBD space just by some of the customers that we were acquiring over a year ago or so. They were coming to us from Shopify, and they were asking us if we were CBD friendly and if we could help them with getting a merchant account, or if we can point them in the right direction for there. And so I've known Rick here on the panel for about 10 years, and he's a serial entrepreneur guy. He'll talk about himself in just a second. But I reached out to Rick and I asked them, hey, we had these customers come to us in one day. Is this really a thing? Is this really a pain point? And so Rick replied back almost immediately. He was like, oh my God, yes, this is one of the biggest things that troubles that we face. Do you have a solution for it? And I was like, well, hold on, let me see what we can do and what we can work with. And so, fast forward to now, we've been, my company and myself, have been helping a lot of CBD brands, just enabling them to be able to sell online, one, but then two, doing a lot, like myself, just doing a lot of the education, like events like this, and a bunch of other CBD expos that we all kind of speak at a bunch of different events, and just my portion is just really educating people about the selling online aspect to it, but the steps that you have, the hurdles they have to go through to sell online, one, and then two is okay, once you made all those decisions and which e-commerce platform you're going to choose, then it's how are you going to drive traffic to that store, right? It's not just going to come. So I speak about just again education pieces. Today I'm not pitching my company or anything like that. I never really pitch my products. It's just more so just educating people about who are wanting to get into it. And so I guess we'll just do introductions to start with. So I guess we'll start with Shayda Torabi. She's with Restart CBD. And Shayda, do you want to do an introduction? Because I'm probably going to really shorten it about yourself, but you have a really good intro.
I appreciate that. Yes, my name is Shayda Torabi. I am the CEO and co-founder of Restart CBD. We are based in Austin, Texas with a brick and mortar store, but we also have an online e-commerce site that is actually hosted with LiquidWeb. I have the pleasure of knowing these guys just through different, community activities, speaking activities, just supporting each other in the CBD community. It's a really big pillar of our brand. We want to educate consumers through high quality CBD products and experiences. And I got into the industry about professionally, I would say we launched our brand a year ago. Personally, I got into CBD 3 years ago after getting in a car accident where I fractured my pelvis in 2 places. And prior to that, I was a marijuana consumer for probably the past 15 years of my life. And so that was what really opened my door to cannabis. And when I was going through the recovery with the accident, my mom is actually the person who introduced me to CBD, saying, hey, did you know that this other cannabinoid exists and it actually has anti-inflammatory properties? Super skeptical, had no idea what it was, and that really begun my journey into personal discovery and education with the plant. That now we kind of use that as a leverage to talk about how it can help our consumers and help the public. And really my goal is to help the state of Texas understand how plant-based medicine can help be a viable solution for pain relief and recovery.
Rick, want to intro?
Hey y'all, I'm Rick Martinez, and so my kind of bullet point background is I'm a registered nurse. I've been an RN since the mid-90s, so for quite a while. Actually 25 years. It'll be 25 years this December that I've been a registered nurse. The relevance of that is because I have a healthcare background, obviously. My business background is not in cannabis or CBD. We actually founded about 20 years ago, my wife and I, what became one of the largest Department of Defense contracting companies in the country. What we did is we put doctors and nurses specifically, found a niche into military hospitals. And of course, after 9/11, business was booming. I was also a former Army nurse, so there's a lot of relevance there as a veteran. We sold that company about 4 years ago and began doing a few things like advising, mentoring, and angel investing into different kinds of startups, which is why I've been connected to the startup community here at Geekdom for quite a while. My segue into the cannabis industry, or CBD, was about, give or take, 3 to 4 years ago, when a friend of mine, he's a Marine, he's an engineer for a large oil company now, but a Marine, who said he wanted help with the startup. And I said, sure, I'd love to help. It's what we do. Art of the Start, we've written curriculum for accelerator programs. We've launched them all over the world to non-cannabis. So the Art of the Start is something I'm fond of. And I said, who do you want to help? And he said, veterans with PTS. And I said, I'm in, whatever you're going to do. And I said, how are you going to help? And he said, CBD. And I thought that was a military acronym, honestly. I didn't know what that was. And there was an immediate conflict because I was raised as an anti-cannabis, being a former Army officer and a government, and having a company that served the federal government, and just my upbringing, I was told that this was a very wrong plant. So I had a moral dilemma, which I overcame through a personal experience, and I ended up trying CBD because of a severe anxiety attack. There's a lot more to that story, but after I was prescribed a slew of medications, I'm a believer in Western medicine. The slew of medications that my physician prescribed after a 911 ER visit, it changed me. And after giving CBD a try, opening my eyes, if you will, my perspective, I no longer am on those. I'm not recommending anybody stop taking prescription meds, but it's changed my life. And I not only became an advocate and a consumer of CBD and cannabis in general, but dove really into helping other companies start. So what we do today, our company is called Green Seed Cannabis Co. We also have a media side called Weeds and No Basis. So Green Seed, when we launched our official programs, we were cited by the local media as the Geekdom of cannabis. So I'll use that because that's what they said, and that's what we do. We work with CBD and cannabis terms, mostly CBD. Our media side, Weeds and No Basis, Chris is actually our producer. We produce twice a week shows, and they stream across 10 different platforms. And our audience is very distinct. We talk to the cannabis startup entrepreneur. And for those of you, I am going to draw, Javi said it was okay. This weekend is our annual conference, this Saturday. It's 11 to 6, greenseedtexas.com. There's free tickets available until tomorrow night, and then they stop. If you happen to see me there and you don't have a ticket, then by all means stop me and I'll make sure you get in. We have about 1,000 people so far showing up, so it's a pretty large, it'll be San Antonio's largest CBD expo to date, and it's this Saturday, 11 to 6. But long story short, that was my origin story. We serve the cannabis community with startups, and our media channel, Weeds and No Basis, is how we get our message out.
Amos?
Hello everybody, good morning. My name is Amos Lozano, and I am the founder of MJ's Hemp. What we do is CBD pre-roll joints packaged in hemp paper and hemp plastic. So for me, I've been a cannabis consumer for over 10 years now, and when I first started using marijuana, I was very conflicted because of all the negative stigma surrounding the plant. And I knew that it made me feel good, and I had a good time with my friends when I would use it. And I would also come up with interesting ideas when I was under the influence. But I always felt guilty when I was under the influence because of the way that I was raised and because of all the stigmas associated with the plant and the community of people that use it. And so I found myself in a divide where I had one group of people I respected, being my coaches, my teachers, my parents, telling me one thing about the plant, that it's going to make me jobless and that it's addicting and all the different crazy things about the plant that everybody's heard of. And then I had this other group of friends that I respected that are, for lack of better words, that were stoners, and telling me that it has all these medical uses, that you can create clothing out of it, that there's all these other uses for this plant. So I'm 18 years old at the time, and I don't know what to believe. So I began researching cannabis because I basically had a conversation with myself where I said, why am I relying on other people to tell me what's true and what's not true about this plant? Let me go and figure this out for myself. So I spent about an hour and a half every single day between my classes. I was going to community college at Lakeview, just studying the ins and outs of the plant, why cannabis became illegal, who made it illegal, where are the origins of all these rumors about the plant, both good and bad. I just wanted to know what is the source of this controversy surrounding this plant. And what I discovered in that journey was industrial hemp. I had never heard of industrial hemp before that. And so at that time, I realized that this country was literally built on industrial hemp. And there's almost nothing more American than cannabis and hemp. And when I discovered that there was a more sustainable fuel source using hemp seed oil, and there's more sustainable clothing material using hemp fibers, and that there was even more sustainable sources of plastics, and we've known about this since the 20s and 30s, and even before that. Benjamin Franklin, this is a new one I just recently learned. In Benjamin Franklin's experiment with the kite, the string that he used was actually a hemp string. And he was a hemp processor. He grew hemp and he had a hemp paper mill. So when I discovered that this country was built on hemp, I became very passionate about hemp specifically, as opposed to just like marijuana, which I'm also an advocate for. But more specifically, it's about hemp for me and my company. And so what we do is we use the familiar use of cannabis, being a joint, to introduce people to the unfamiliar uses of cannabis, being hemp paper, hemp plastics, and hemp apparel. All of our apparel is also made out of hemp. So that's a little bit about me, my history, and what we do.
Cool. So yes, I met Amos probably about a little over a year ago after Rick's event last year, and we were talking about like online website kind of stuff, and then he went into talking about just the history of hemp, and just like blew my mind. So I had no earthly idea. He was like talking, and I was just like, yes, like, keep telling me more, keep telling me more. It was super, and I started reading up more about it, and it was kind of like, why are we not doing more of this? So on this panel, there's really not I didn't have like a set format to be like, we're gonna do discussion and it's gonna be Q&A. I have some topics that, or some questions that I'm going to ask them, and if there's any questions that you in the audience have that arise from that, they're the experts. They have successful brands. They've helped build successful businesses, CBD businesses as well. So feel free to, don't be shy and ask. So I guess I'll start with Shayda first. So first, jumping right into it. So the topic is like the lessons learned, right, for CBD businesses in Texas. So we were just talking about this right now in terms of like, oh, every day there's a fire I have to put out, right? But okay, if you were from when you started to today, like for you, what has been kind of like the number one kind of like challenge that you face? Whether it's like your brick and mortar store or your online store, what would you say to this?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we were just talking about, I think every day there's something that I'm learning is a roadblock in my way that unfortunately I think when you open and start a business in any other industry outside of cannabis, you have access to tools and resources that are a little bit more easily to access. You can go sign up for a PayPal account, you can sign up for a Square account, you talked about maybe using Shopify, you go to your bank, you get a business account, credit card. There's steps that as you're setting up a business that you go, naturally take. And I think for us, the biggest challenge has always been around money, processing people's money. When you want to create a brand, I think you can have really great aspirations for changing the world and wanting to impact people, but I think the fundamental foundation for any business is the profitability, because that money is what allows me to then go invest back into my business to continue to grow it and to continue to, reach more people and educate more people. And so for us, launching online originally was a challenge because the platforms that you can take advantage of, but like having a platform is kind of like one aspect, but then like plugging in the money to process people's credit cards for the product was really difficult. And so we ended up getting the payment merchant, who was one of the bigger payment merchants in the space. This was about a year ago, and they were called Elevon, and there was some rumors they were going to exit the scene. And within about 4 to 5 months, I think, they ended up leaving the scene, and it dropped about like 80% of the businesses. So you had this really big excitement and this swell of people getting into CBD and cannabis, but then you had one of the major players leave, and so there were a lot of businesses who had a hard time finding a supplemental way to process people's money. Now presently we're with a really good payment merchant, but another thing that kind of came up, we were at dinner the other night, and they told us I couldn't process paraphernalia. So if you don't know what the definition of paraphernalia is, it's the pipes, the batteries, the mechanisms used to consume the actual product. And so my payment merchant said, you can sell flour, you can sell vape products, but you can't sell the tools, the mechanisms to consume those products. And so it's like for every step forward I was making, I'm presently met with, kind of reevaluating what that strategy is to move forward. So I get a lot of people who see the success that I've built with my brand. Part of that was right timing in the market. Part of that was my marketing. My background professionally is marketing. If you were at my talk yesterday, I talked a lot about it. But that's where I think our business has found success. But people are always asking, how do I get into the space? What are the challenges that you experience? I'm like, find someone who will take your money. Because it doesn't matter if you're doing it online, it doesn't matter if you're doing it retail, if you're distributing, there's all slightly different strategies to doing that. And that's something that doesn't matter how big we grow, the community in general, I just hear that it's a constant problem with not a lot of resolution to it right now.
And so Rick, kind of like a little bit different version, since you consult with a lot of entrepreneurs who are getting into it, what are some of the maybe misconceptions or some kind of the mistakes that some of them may have done a couple steps forward and then it's 4 steps back and where you've had to kind of help them, what are some that you can think of?
Back to what Shayda said is that the merchant processing, it's a big deal, and it's not the biggest deal. The biggest deal actually occurs well before that, because by the time an entrepreneur in the space gets to the point where they can't find a processor or they get shut down, it's likely because they haven't properly planned. So some of the biggest, here's a great example. I got no names mentioned, but Instagram or Facebook or a message from somebody and who's talking about how does he get his brand out there? How does he get more known? And then there was a little piece in his email about payment processor having problems. And so a lot of things. And so what that says to me is that he's in a car and he's about to hit a wall. And I'll receive several messages like that every week. Basically, they're about to crash into a wall, proverbial, their business. And so I asked the same basic set of questions. I said, basically, what was your marketing plan going into this? What was your strategy, growth strategy, prior to launching? What was your 12-year, your annual goals, the day you started? And did you think about those 3 months before you actually launched? And the answer was, I don't know. And this is the general answer that I received. I didn't have it, I didn't have a strategy, there's no plan, and that's why they're going to crash into the wall. The merchant processing is an issue, without a doubt, but it's an issue that can be overcome if it's part of a strategic plan, the vision, well before you pull the trigger. I want you to imagine getting into an F1 race car, and has anybody in here ever driven an F1 race car? They're extremely powerful vehicles. I never have either. Would anybody in here ever hop into one and just take off on the track? The answer is likely no. Entrepreneurs don't think that way. And CBD entrepreneurs definitely don't, because there's a lot of, there's flash, there's cash, it's the rush, there's opportunity, but there's never a reason, generally speaking, there's rarely a reason why that entrepreneur, or the noble cause, like Nick Longo says, why that person is starting. The point is this, is that I would never jump into an F1 race car. I would never tell you, go ahead and jump into one, that F1 race car being symbolic of your business. Just go ahead and if you crash, post the meme on Facebook. I never lose. I never lose. I either win or I learn. That doesn't work in real life. It doesn't. I'm a registered nurse. I was just telling Amos, I helped a friend yesterday, literally yesterday. I've been a trauma nurse for a long time. And you're the first one that knows what I just shared. So she runs one of these after-party IV clinics where people go and you party too hardy, they put an IV in you, get it's called a banana bag. It's a hot thing. I helped her yesterday. She had a big party show up, and it's actually right here off Soledad, I think. And all I did was pop IVs in her clients. That's all I did. I forgot why I was going with an analogy, but the point is,
the race car there.
Yeah. I think where I'm coming from is that there's going to be 3 unique perspectives here. My perspective is I would never tell somebody to go ahead and try it, build your wings on the way down. Those memes are such a farce. I don't know how to build wings. I didn't know how to build wings the first company we launched. I would say learn, connect. Like Shayda said, this is a very helpful community. Understand why you want to do it. If you don't know how to cast a vision, find somebody. Think about why you want to do the things. There's so much to lay down. Think about pouring the foundation of your house, your business house, before you start putting the walls up. Because without the foundation, you're destined to crash and burn, like these emails I get say. And I'll be damned if I'm going to jump into a driver's seat with them when they're about to crash. This is things that we should be thinking about long before we start. And in any other industry, here's where I was going with that, because I'm a registered nurse. I didn't just walk in there one day and say, let me try starting IVs on people. I went through schooling, just like any of you did in your endeavors, your vocations. You went through a school process, step-by-step curriculum, military, Navy, you went through boot camp. I would argue there's never anything in any other aspect of life that we don't have some sort of curriculum, training, mentoring, but entrepreneurs seem to think, let me just jump in. This is how I feed my family. I just don't like to operate that way. I want to go in fully aware with a plan to succeed. So the biggest hurdles I see is this is a rush. And this is a green rush, and you're going to start seeing a lot of places. The tip of the iceberg, I mentioned this on Tuesday, are the shops we see. You don't see what's going on underneath, that proverbial beneath the surface. You're going to start seeing some of these shops closing down because they just decided to jump into the car and drive as fast as they can, and they're about to hit the walls. No names, but these emails are coming a lot more fast and furious, and I feel bad for them, but I feel worse for the industry, because they're bastardizing it. I think you made a post yesterday about something to that, and it's true. It's true. So, long and short, guys, this is business. It just happens to be a unique product. It happens to be a product that's not quite as understood as we like to believe. I'm in my 50s. If I can understand it, gravitate, and change my mind, surely anybody else in here can, and help your parents do so. Plan first. Plan to win. And that's the meme we should be focusing on. Not I never lose, I either win or learn, but plan to win. Plan to win, plan to win, plan to win.
So the biggest challenges we have faced, kind of piggyback off of what Rick was just talking about here, but I would say this market, this industry, and then more specifically in this area, is growing so fast, and that presents a lot of problems. A lot of them are good problems, but they're still problems. But I would say the biggest lesson is that you have to be very adaptable in this industry. Like, as an entrepreneur in general, you already have to be adaptable and be ready to overcome challenges. But then more specifically in the cannabis industry in San Antonio, where it's exploding, things are changing so fast because it's growing so fast that you have to be able and willing to change and adapt quickly. And with that, like Rick is saying, planning is so crucial, and strategizing is so crucial, and looking ahead and trying to project out all the different challenges that you know you're going to encounter. So like what Shayda touched on with merchant processing and taking people's money, that is a challenge that we have to deal with just like any CBD company, which is why, in my experience, it's not my biggest challenge, because it's a challenge that I expected, because I planned for it, and I looked into the industry before, and I knew, okay, here are the 5, 6, 7, 8 challenges that I already know I'm going to face. What are the ones that I don't know I'm going to face? And that's what's, I would say, is the biggest thing we've learned. And then with that, if you do that proper planning and you have a really good product, now you need to have a good plan for scaling. This year we've done a lot of traveling, going to different dispensaries, going to visit farmers. We like to go to the ground where it's grown so we can build a relationship with the source of the cannabis plant. But one of the things that we do with my partner Mike and I is we'll go and hit up to 10 dispensaries in one trip in one city, because we want to know their challenges. We want to know what's it like on their end. Of course, we're talking about recreational marijuana dispensaries. But one of the things in our recent trip that the bartender shared with us was that she said one of the biggest issues she sees is brands pop up with great products. They get really hot, they become a customer favorite, but then they can't keep up with the demand and they can't scale. And then by the time they do invest in scaling, the customer has a short attention span and they switch to a new product, they have a new favorite, and then they go out of business. And she said, we see this all the time. And so I would say the biggest lessons we learned is to be as adaptable as you can be, and then have a good strategy for being able to scale if and when your product goes up, because this industry is exploding across all fronts, but particularly if you're focusing on branding the way Rick is and the way Shayda is, and you're focusing on quality products, it's going to explode. So you shouldn't be surprised when it explodes. Instead, be prepared, like Rick is saying, plan to win.
Great. So the next question I have is going to kind of be a little bit more on the consumer side. So like over the past couple of days, the folks in attendance, some are thinking about starting a CBD business, some are just here to learn. So, and anybody here in the panel can take this first question. But so as like these people here wearing their consumer hat, they're going to walk into some CBD shop here in San Antonio. Like, what are the questions they should be asking to the person behind the counter in terms of like, I think, well, one, being involved in, right, Amos hit on it, is like the source, right? But like, what are like those types of questions? Like, what is a COA or what should you ask around that, or should they ask around that, or what are things that they should be asking and looking for? So, and you all can take that one.
I'll start only because literally yesterday, I made a live video teaching people how to read a COA because I had posted one about, or there was a new strain that they carry, and I had a couple people DM me, and they were like, "This is really cool. Could you post lab results?" But
could you just define what a COA is?
For sure. Yeah. So that's when I realized that people don't know that. They don't know what a COA is, and then they don't know what they're looking at or what they're looking for. So a COA is just a certificate of analysis, and all that is it's just an official lab analysis from a third party. Should be a third party lab showing the content of what's in the product. And what's important on the COA, probably the most important thing at first, is just the THC content. You have to be sure that the THC content is under 0.2%, which makes it a legal hemp product. Because if it's over, you're no longer compliant with the law and potentially subject to, basically marijuana type treatment. Like, you'd be treated as if you're possessing marijuana potentially if it's over 0.2% THC in the product. So that's one thing, checking the date. I've gotten COAs from a farm that was tested a year and a half ago. And I'm like, this product you sent me this week, how do I know it's the same that you tested a year and a half ago? So the date needs to be relevant, it has to be recent, otherwise it's not very credible. But then the other thing is making sure that the sample name matches the actual product that you have. So like if I received a COA and it's a tincture, but I got flower, it's not the correct COA. And then the other thing is just making sure that it's actually coming from the source. So like, for instance, we'll get in a batch of flower from a farm in Oregon. That will come with the COA that farm sent off to the lab. Now then I'm going to send a sample of that batch to another third-party lab to get our own samples. So I'm going to confirm that COA or that product matches the COA with my own testing. And then you can know for sure that what I'm getting to my consumer is what I'm saying it is. And so you also want to check the name on there. Like if you're buying something from MJ's, but then you're getting a COA from Fusion Labs or Fusion Farms in Oregon, then it's not necessarily not credible, but you want it to be, it'd be better if it's coming from the actual company that you're buying from, because you know that they've confirmed those results. That's just a little bit. I'm sure Shayda has some more input with your retail space.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. It's funny, you read on the internet, what we're about to say, what we're sharing is like, these are the things that as a consumer I'm supposed to go check the box on. And we had a lady come in and she brought literally a blog post, and it was like, okay, I need to know, do you have COAs? Okay, I need to know, is there THC? We're like asking all these questions, and I was like, wait, I have a COA and I'll show it to you, but do you even know what you're reading? And so for us, it's trying to plug that gap. And I love that you're doing those live kind of explanation videos, because I think that's how consumers start to understand. I think you kind of touched on it too, a similar story that I had. I didn't know what these things were until I started putting myself in that position to do the research and learn. But one that I would say comes up a lot that is really simple math that anybody with any product that is a quality product should be able to produce is understanding milligrams. specifically on tinctures. So I get a lot of people who come into my store and they say, I use CBD, I'm using blah, blah, blah brand, I'm looking for, let's say, 1,000 milligrams. And I go, great, 1,000 milligrams in what size bottle? Because 1,000 milligrams in a 30 ml bottle is going to be a different concentration than 1,000 milligrams in a 10 ml bottle or a 60 ml bottle. And so pretty simple math, you take the large number of milligrams, so let's say it's 600 milligrams, and then you divide it by the bottle size. So if it's a 10 ml bottle, that then cuts it into, I hate math though, so help me out guys. Is it?
You're a nurse, right? What do you know?
600 milligrams in a 10 ml bottle is 60 milligrams, right? Yeah, there we go. I'm like trying to think of like my bottle sizes. So 60 milligrams in a 10 ml bottle is different than 600 milligrams in a 30 ml bottle, which is going to cut it into 20 milligrams a dropper. And so not just knowing how many milligrams you're looking for in a product, but actually knowing the bottle size, or really knowing the concentration that you're ultimately trying to get to is really key. Because one, it's kind of illegal to say how many milligrams is effective for any particular ailment. So some people come in, they want a prescription, they say, I have anxiety, I have chronic pain, how much CBD should I take? And I'm always like, you should start low and slow and then work your way up from there. But understanding what products in that bottle is kind of your first key. So knowing if the bottle has 30 milligrams per dropper, maybe you want to start with half of a dropper or a quarter of that dropper to get to a low dose and then work your way up. But just picking a bottle off the shelf and it's saying 1,000 milligrams, 600 milligrams isn't really helpful. And so that's honestly a tool that you can use. Any CBD shop you go to, any shop you're shopping online should be able to tell you how many milligrams in the total bottle, how many milliliters that product or bottle is, and then you can do the math, just divide to get the concentration. Hopefully better math than me. In my defense, I majored in communications. Math is not my strong suit.